Okay, welcome to the AQA Comp 1 2013 Programming Exam Solution tutorial. We're going to look at visualizing the RailFence. This is obviously basically showing, demonstrating, displaying how the RailFence cipher is formed. And you need to make sure that you understand exactly how the encrypt RailFence algorithm works. I'm not sure how they're going to ask a question on it, but in the pre-release, let's quickly go to the pre-release, they go to great lengths to make sure that they say exactly how the RailFence cipher is formed, and they gave you two examples. And if we just quickly go to Simon Singh's Black Chamber, I've whacked in the Quick Brown Fox here. They've got a little algorithm that shows how this would be formed, and you can see that. I'm not going to explain how it works, by the way, not in this tutorial. You can see that basically for 6 rows, it's every 7th character that would need to be written here, and that's really the problem that you've got. The idea that we can't write it in columns. This is not something we can do in the console. It's not even something we could easily do in a Windows environment. I suppose if I directly controlled the screen. So how would I solve this? To be honest with you, if I was starting from scratch, I would whack this into a 2D array. Perfectly reasonable, but we don't need to, thankfully. And in fact, if we did chuck it into a 2D array, we'd be following roughly the decryption algorithm from the code. But we're going to use the encryption algorithm to form this, and basically take in this case every 7th character. The other problem we've got is that this last column sometimes has characters in it and sometimes doesn't. If you don't understand what I'm talking about, you're in trouble, because this is something that you need to get your head around. Go onto the Black Chamber, read the pre-release, play with this, make sure you understand how this RailFence is being formed. Really important. Back to PowerPoint. Because in this tutorial, I'm going to assume that you do understand how the RailFence is formed, that you've read that pre-release very, very, very carefully. And obviously you know the normal VB stuff. Okay, so what do? We use the same methods for encrypting the RailFence. So we've got a couple of nested loops. We step through nth character, and we're going to use a mixture of writes and write lines to actually display to the console. Whenever you're writing a piece of code, you should look for an analogous bit of code, a bit of code that does roughly the same thing, maybe in a different context, maybe in the same context, and you should see if you can crib off it. I mean, those of you that do web programming, I know that the first thing you do is try and find someone else that's solved a similar problem. And in actual fact, this is not bad practice. Certainly when you get onto object-oriented programming, the idea that you might alter a little bit of code and use it in a different way becomes one of the ways of working. But that's for next year. For now, what we're going to do is take a slightly different approach to what I've always done. I've already written the solution here. Got a couple of variables, a couple of counters, basically steppers, in the AQA syllabus. And it's slightly strange, because I've got a nested loop, but I've got a while, and they've used it like this rather than a do while, but it's exactly the same thing. And sorry, I referred to them. I ought to be honest here. This is the encrypt using RailFence, and what I did was to highlight this, Control C, paste it in, and change it. Now, some of the there are a few changes. Let's spot the difference. This is a procedure. This is a function. Why? Because encrypt using RailFence, this returns a value. This returns the ciphertext. Display the RailFence grid does not return a value, it just does something. So I changed it for that. Other than that, you can see that it's got the same parameters being passed in, it's got the same counters, and it's got the same methodology. The only subtle difference is that this concatenates the ciphertext, gradually builds up the ciphertext. So this is sort of effectively a running total, or I'm trying to remember what the variable role is for a gatherer. There we go, sorry. So this is the classic gatherer, and in fact, if that's not a question in the section C, I'll be surprised. But this is your absolute classic gatherer variable role. So we've got two steppers, one stepping up, one stepping down, and we've got a gatherer that is concatenating up the ciphertext. That's how the encrypt RailFence works. Step through this code, use the step into function, bang, 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 and just work your way through it to make sure you've got a really clear picture about how this works. But the way it is working is that it says, here's the first character. For RailFence size of 4, I'll jump 5 characters. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now take the 5th character, stick it there. And I'll take another 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's the 5th character, and stick it in here. 1, 2. Oh, I've run out of characters. Now the nice thing about the RailFence is I don't have to start counting here. I know that it's always going to be the second character that gets placed here. So I know that's going to be E. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th character. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th character. Oh, I've run out of characters. The 3rd character. So that's all it's doing. So basically, let's close that down. For each row, start on an nth character. Now, keep going until I run out of characters, and concatenate, or in this case, do a console.write to the console for every nth character. I'm sure that didn't make sense to you. I'm just going to clear this and show you how I actually did it. So, whoops. I'm just going to clear this out. Delete. Whoops. Bish. I literally went. I set up the procedure. Then just went Control C, Control V, like that, and then knew that I had to change this to actually just write the current character. And then all I've got to do is put a console.write line in at the end. Oh, sorry, when I say the end, I mean on the outer loop. So effectively for the inner loop, I'm just writing along a single row, and then for the outer loop, I'm basically adding an extra line. Just in case I put a typo there, I'm going to go back to my original text before I test it, sorry. Because I've tested that. Right, let's quickly run it. I've obviously added the menu item. And I've put that as F. If you've looked at any of my other pests, you'll see how to do that. And all that F does is call this RailFence grid. And oh, do you know what? I need to add in a plain text, don't I? So I'll just quickly do that. Okay, so let's do that, and let's just quickly display the plain text just to make sure it's gone in. Lovely. And now let's choose F, and let's have 4, and you can see it's displayed it like that. It's not massively clear if I don't do the underscores, but I can absolutely assure you that that has worked. Let's do it as 6 so we can see it the same as you saw on the black chamber. And you can see we've got that hanging G with all the spaces underneath it, well not spaces, the empty column underneath it, which was exactly the same as in here. If I just quickly create the rail fence. This sort of slanted view would be an absolute pigging nightmare to produce nicely in the console. I guess you could do it just by adding 1 space, 2 spaces, 3 spaces, 4 spaces at the start of each line, but it's enough of a headache to do it like this. So just to finish off, I feel like this has been a bit random. Just to finish off, that F call is just simply a single line where I've got the plain text being passed in, and then I've put get size of rail fence, which is actually a call. I suppose if I was going to be strict, I ought to have done a separate line here, get size of rail fence equals get size of rail fence, but you can call a function as a parameter name, it's not a problem. Okay, I hope that was useful. Here you've seen how to display the rail fence grid, and you've done that by taking the encrypt rail fence code and just changing the concatenation to a console.write and putting a console.write line, so you get the new line. Do it yourself. You can obviously always access my paste bin to copy and paste the code, but it's only 2 lines, and then if you step through it you'll see how it works.